I don't know if anybody else uses TikTok like this, but sometimes I feel like my saved videos are very reminiscent of how on my laptop I will have like 50 tabs open. If I see something when I'm scrolling on TikTok and it sparks my interest, I immediately save it as a favorite. Sometimes it's because I want to go back and, make a video reply to it. Sometimes it's just a recipe that I want or a book recommendation that I want to refer back to later. Sometimes it's something that I don't have time to watch all the way through because it's a long video. And sometimes it is something that I really want to rewatch again later. I have watched it. I need to think about it for a bit and then rewatch it again to really kind of, coalesce my thoughts. I need to marinate in that subject for a while and then rewatch and see if my initial reaction matches how I feel after taking some time to think on it. And like I said, my use of my laptop is similar. I have so many tabs open at once. So I just made a TikTok video about how some of my content is getting flagged and removed. TikTok is claiming really wild violations that I'm not committing. But my account is set to get remonetized in 4 days. And if they can pile up a bunch of strikes, then they don't have to remonetize it. And I said in that video that I recognize that some of the content that I'm talking about, the struggles of the working class, is something that those in power don't want us talking about right now. So that may be another motivation. And I made a longer video about it on my backup account where I was saying that I'm going to stick to more, but are not going to risk me losing my 100,000 followers by having my account shut down. And also just things that are popping through my head as I am, going about my day. I think that's what my content's going to be like for the next couple of days. And so I flipped over to my saved videos tab to look through and see okay, is there something here that I've been wanting to talk about and have been distracted by the current news? And so I haven't gotten around to talking about these subjects yet. Now is a good time for me to talk about them. And I was shocked how many of my saved videos now all have the little broken sign through them and have been taken down. Not to tell on myself for how many saved videos I have, but dozens of them have been removed. Now, I don't know whether those were taken down by the creators or whether they got CGVs as well, but that is atypical for my saved videos. Usually there's a few with broken links that are no longer there, but a couple dozen, that's highly unusual. But it got me thinking about, the way I organize information on TikTok and on my laptop. Well, one, how insecure it is, but two, maybe it's a little bit chaotic. I don't know what my dogs are barking about in the background, by the way. Probably a squirrel. Now, I'm not generally somebody who takes notes or writes things down. My mom was someone who kept Post-it notes everywhere. She would jot down ideas and just stick them all over the cupboards. The fact that I don't really externalize my organization of ideas maybe is because, I have not needed to build those skills. Folks ask me a lot on my YouTube videos how it is that I have memorized such a huge amount of permaculture knowledge, a huge amount of plant cultivation knowledge, how I remember where I plant everything in the garden without having to write it down in a garden journal, how I remember the scientific names and all of the details about each and every plant, and the interplay between that plant and the other organisms around it and the environment. Because sometimes, on my YouTube videos, I just start spouting information. A number of my videos are almost stream of consciousness where I'm walking in the garden and I'm like, oh, what is happening here in this corner of my permaculture garden that I can talk about today? And then I just talk off the cuff about it. So folks are like, how do you remember all of that? How do you make this video on the fly without having to do research? And, I don't have a good answer for them. I made a whole video on this a while back, but that's just how my brain works. I just retain all of that information. I do have somewhat of a photographic memory. And I say somewhat because it's not like every interaction. It's things that I consciously choose to remember, right? I can refer back to that ornithology text from college and close my eyes and I can see the text. Or I can read about a plant once and then close my eyes and remember what I've read. And so it just takes that one instance to memorize it. And I've said, I feel like I have a Sherlock Holmes mind palace, but mostly just for plants, because those are the things I care enough to commit to memory. And so it really is kind of like file cabinets where I can pull up and recall something. So the same thing, I don't need a garden map or a garden journal, because I just close my eyes and I see the layout of the garden and I look in one corner and I can just pull up note cards or file boxes about what's going on there. So that means that I haven't really cultivated those skills of organizing notes, outside of my own head, which means that I do have kind of a chaotic way of setting ideas aside to look at later. 50 tabs open, or in the days when I subscribed to magazines, I would see a headline I liked, and if I didn't have time to read it, I would just rip it out and set it in a pile, and later I would just have like a stack of articles to look through. Not even remotely organized by topic, just a stack for whenever I got around to it. I think for me, this did create problems in school as well, because there were a lot of subjects for which I just never really had to study. And so when there were subjects that were more difficult or required, more concentration and more study on my part, organic chemistry, for example, or subjects that I had to take, but like I wasn't really invested in them, I didn't really care about them, like taking calculus in high school. Like I got A's, but none of that made it into my Sherlock Holmes mind palace. It was very much study and then dump after the test. I could not close my eyes and see the pages of a calculus textbook to save my life. I could close my eyes and quote you Bernheinrich, The Mind of the Raven, or like entire passages of scripture, because that was meaningful to me. Anyway, just some ramblings, as long as I am trying to avoid talking about more controversial topics for today.